As a leader, we find ourselves repeating old strategies all the time, even when we know it's time for a new approach. The challenge is to embrace the tension between our head and our heart, to decide when to lead with our head's logic or choose our heart's wisdom. Join me in this honest peer conversation with my dear friend and serial entrepreneur, Benj, facing exactly this challenge. In a few moments, you will gain the clarity to get unstuck and lead with renewed, authentic impact. I invite you to like this episode, subscribe to our channel, and DM Future to continue the conversation. My name is Arjan Visser, human-centered futurist, and your host today. Welcome, Benj, to the Alt Journey podcast. I'm super excited to continue our conversation.
Thank you. It's really cool to be here and just to grapple with some of these game-changing ideas. So thank you.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. And just before we went on air, we were talking about the leadership paradox, the tension in working from past achievements, success, but also recognizing the emerging future. So, what stood out for you in last week's episode of the interview that, thanks to my son, I'm able to share with online. So, what stood out for you?
Yeah, it was really interesting. I think there was a lot to grapple with, but one of the things that particularly stood out to me was where you talked about the entrepreneurial side of leadership that our brain loves to tell us to repeat previous successes. And you sort of juxtapose that with your heart and your heart recognizing the emerging future. And you described a choice in there. And I think it's interesting because, like, when I first had it, I was like, well, no, I don't want to choose between my heart and my head, because I need them both. So that was one of the things that stuck out to me in my thought process. Um,
I think you're right, and maybe that is the tension. Maybe maybe a better word is the paradox. And I believe a paradox is something that's currently seems to be opposite, but and so to explain it easy, we tend to create a divide. We tend to polarize things. That's a bit how our brain works. It's the storage mechanism of our memory. And if that is natural, organic, at least we know it's the result of how we are educated.
yeah,
And so one end, our head loves to fall back to proven results. It's what we have achieved, what we have been recognized for, maybe received a reward for. We love to fall back to those kind of successes and repeat them again. And I truly believe when done right, it's the best thing we can do. But overdone, maybe then we actually miss the whole point. Because when a situation appears that we have been in before, we can use our experience, we can use our last remedy to apply it again. And it's called wisdom. But if we are in a slightly different or totally new situation, we don't want to fall back to what we did last time. We need to start listening to our heart and explore the new instead of redefining, refining the old.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really interesting because I know for me, when I step into new situations or start to imagine what could be beyond what I'm currently doing and what I currently see, the temptation is exactly that to try and repeat what was done before. And I think the interesting thing that just popped in my head when you were talking is actually it's the why I do that, which is interesting. And I think it's actually often driven by a fear of failure or fear of looking stupid. So you try and do what you think and what you know has worked in all the other situations.
Mm.
Um, but but I don't think it ever really works in that new um, scenario. Yeah, maybe some of the wisdom and the nuggets of learning from it you carry with you, but actually there's that it's that letting go process and stepping courageously forward. Um,
I believe it is. It is letting go. It is. I agree with. It's out of fear that we want to repeat something, and although we won't recognize in the moment that is fear based, but there is a huge drive in us, and I don't think it's an intrinsic motivation drive. It's more like an expectation drive set by ourselves, our culture, our environment, where we don't want to disappoint people and we don't want to disappoint ourselves. So let's do something that worked last time, because last time it didn't disappoint anyone. Actually, everyone loved it.
yeah,
And there I think we missed the point,
yeah,
because we fall back on the last, I would say the last important question is the how. And we start then with, we know how to do it because we can do it the same way as we did it last time. And when it's about the new or when it's different, then there are way more important questions, or maybe equally important, but they need to be prioritized a little bit higher. Um, the who am I? Who am I becoming? The where to am I going?
yeah,
Why does this matter?
yeah,
Are just a few takes on a question starting with a W instead of a H.
yeah. And I think why does that priority matter? I think often if you look at um, the people who you're leading, it's the questions that they're wanting to know as much as the ones that you need to know. Um, the why and the where to, that's where true leadership stands out, because you signpost to people where not only where you're going, but where they could go to. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I said the entrepreneurial side of leadership. I think entrepreneurship is a dimension like ownership of leadership. And in leadership, we know it's not about controlling people. It's not telling them how to do things. It's about empowering them. It's about equipping them and mainly inspiring them by going first.
yeah,
On the entrepreneurial side, we have that tension that is actually the how question. How are we going to approach this? How are we going to add value? And then we should not forget that it's needs to give clarity about what is the value, what's the goal, what's the result we're going after, instead of introducing the last form that worked. And
Yeah.
it happens so quickly that we make that mistake. And now, and failure is about learning. You know, you have to fail fast to learn.
Yeah.
But it is that thing of like, don't step into the trap as a leader. And if you're leader to someone else or you're leading yourself, to project the way you did it last time.
Yeah.
Because then you're repeating what you do, and you completely shortcut that it's about who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And I totally get, from the um discussion that you're having, that the heart side of it as well. So, we've talked about the head side, and I think actually conversation, we are in agreement. It's not one v the other. It's priority. But I think the heart side of it is really interesting when you focus in on the being or becoming, who am I question. Um, it's like there's this hidden wisdom in your heart that so often gets shut down and ignored, that needs to be reprioritized to see from the future who you could become. Um, Not sure if that makes full sense, but I just kind of, yeah, I think it's really interesting to talk about that. So you posed it as, head versus heart in a way, and but I think it's like, what leads? Does head lead or does heart lead in your leadership almost? And there's times when it's okay to have your head leading, because you need that, and you need that critical thought and the process and the learned experience and knowledge and wisdom that comes from that. But then when you look at some of these things that you've been talking about, like real, authentic, transformational leadership that leads into the unknown and to create new scenarios, that the head leading just doesn't work. That's when you kind of need to go, okay, I'm going to let my heart lead, and the um, the wider senses that we have, um, to retrain some of your thought patterns and your head knowledge for the new experiences, um, and the new becoming.
Yeah. Yeah, that just triggers a thought as well, because it is, in a way, it's situational. You need to be able to discern in what setting am I. So it's not about subconscious, it's about really become consciously self-aware. What is the situation I'm in? Leading others, leading myself. Is this slightly different, or is it exactly the same as last time? And if it's slightly different or new, then connect with my heart or connect with my senses. Maybe that's a better word. Because if we connect to our senses, and we have the seeing, the hearing, and the tasting, which sounds like physical senses, but we can also apply them way more heart spirit connected. So if we see our horizon, which is with our imagination, with the eyes of our heart, we want to find something that's highlighted on that horizon. So it gives us clarity and focus. The developing of language is essential to reveal to ourselves what it really is about. And faith comes by hearing, which means we develop actions connected to what we hear it is about. And then we experience it. So we have a taste, and we can taste what is good, what is great, what is not so good. And that's all our whole process of sensing what is the situation we are about. But this is all the inside heart shaping, unfolding of who we are. There's also the expression. So if we discern what's life giving, what is purposeful for the direction we are on as a leader in our personal growth, or the direction, the vision in our organizational development, again, it is not about good, it's about what makes us great, what is great to do, what is the right thing to do for the right people. That leads all in a way to focusing, converging to the things that really matter for us, because we have authority, we have the perspective, and we have the maturity.
Yeah.
So in a way, the heart is always on the journey of maturity and growth, personal growth, while the head is on the journey of let's do it again and fall back to our mastery. And one is not greater than the other, but without each other, it becomes less effective,
Yeah.
definitely non-authentic, and we start to miss the point. We miss the point that the people that we are able to lead are there for their personal growth, and the overflow of that personal growth contributes to great results. And if we lose that perspective and we start to steer, control them on maximizing productivity, we shortcut their personal growth, their creativity, their uniqueness, and we just reduce them to a set of hands, and then heart and head are gone.
Yeah. Yeah, I, I think it's interesting the thoughts that pop up in my head listening to you describe that is it's about being fully human and and the full part of our identity and being, which is not just our head and our thoughts and our experiences, but it's all of us, that deep identity being piece, which so often we use our heart to describe, um, and how all of our senses contribute to that maturing process, and working out what it is that is our kind of core purpose, and right now and into the future, and helping show the people around us how they can discover their purposes as well, um, through that maturing process.
Yeah, we land around the word maturing and maturity. I have a few grown-up kids, and they are now on the mature age. And I'm telling them, welcome to the life phase where maturity starts.
Yeah,
And I hope you fulfill it before you go to the next phase. The truth is, it's 20 of 20 of 20% who fulfills it. Just that's what the data shows. So maturity is not a thing. It's quite a intensive element of life that needs a lot of intention, a lot of accountability, because the daily worry, the daily activity really pushes it to the background, to the corner where we could skip it. So
yeah.
how do you make sure that maturing through all your senses is a core activity? What's the word that pops to my mind?
It's a that's a interesting question, um, which I don't fully feel like I have the answer to. But the, I sense that from my experience so far, choice is a big part of it. Um, you know, when we look at the daily decisions of life and the bigger, longer term strategic decisions, on what do I spend my time on, who do I spend my time with, what are my real priorities? Knowing the stuff that we've just been talking about prioritization of, you know, heart, wider senses as we step into new things. Often when that's the tough choice, I think is absolutely key. Um, and and the maturing process comes through continually making those bold, courageous steps, which might be, making sure that you continue learning. Uh, could be making sure you've got a really good group of peers around you, um, probably outside of your context of direct leadership, can be accountable to, um, if that's the right word, I don't know, but at least who you can practice some of the times that you might get it wrong when you listen to your senses, or might not have the right language to describe what you sense. I think that's always the challenge, isn't it? When you sense something, how do you communicate it when you don't quite know what it is, but you can just feel it or smell it?
Yeah, that interesting. That's interesting what you just said. It's about discerning when it's the right time for what. And brings back a memory of an earlier podcast we did about what are the circles of people you have around you. So if your head knows that it's right to repeat something that's predictable because it worked last time, you probably do it with the circle of people that work for you.
Yeah.
If you are sensing something new and in the process of finding clarity and language and actually the meaning of it, you want another circle of people around you that help you to in that process to move forward and take the great crazy new idea and work it out to something that is a breakthrough and not just a crazy idea.
Yeah.
Because if you just share your crazy ideas without the language that really justifies what you see, what you sense, what you hear, then you probably will burn the circle of people.
Yeah,
And
you're written off as a crazy, aren't you?
well, you end the emotional and psychological safety for them.
Yeah.
You pull the plug of trust. And although it doesn't mean you didn't sense right, but there is a development stage. It's your personal growth. It's your personal alignment with the new idea. It's the personal language, the self-belief that needs to align with who you are becoming. So that crazy idea is an invitation for alignment and growth with who you are becoming. And there needs to be a certain level of clarity developed before you share that with your work circle. Because for them, it sounds like you lost your mind and you kill what always worked. You want to change it for whatever reason. They probably think you ate something wrong last night and had a weird dream. So You have to protect them. You have to protect yourself. So you need to have that other circle. And doing it on your own, I think that is a very dangerous place as a leader, because that means that in isolation, you change the world. Without reflection, you develop some character virtues that are not recognized as virtues.
That's a kind way of putting it.
I try to be nice today. Yeah, the other word you said, accountability. We tend to be a bit afraid of that word. Probably because we associate it to that we are made accountable.
Yeah.
I think healthy accountability to yourself, to your peers, to the people you lead is essential for your growth, but maybe
Yeah.
even more essential for their growth. And you need to be very vulnerable. It is actually quite uncomfortable, painful to be accountable. But it's maybe it's the power tool, relational, to the people around you to grow with you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's another one of those things, I think, bit like maturity, it's a muscle that needs to be worked out. Otherwise, you get unhealthy.
Absolutely. Yeah, you don't want to be stuck in some kind of frozen muscle.
No. And just taking the muscle analogy a little bit further, there's two aspects of muscle development. One is actually the strength work, which is regular and hard, but overlaid on that, you need a stretching. And it's different things to stretch a muscle to work it out, on our actual muscles of our body. But when you look at that in terms of, you know, the the practices that we've been talking about that lead you towards greater maturity, I think it's the same. Accountability. Probably first when you first start out, making yourself choose to be accountable to yourself and to your peers. Um, you probably have a weak muscle, and you probably need to do some strength. You need to just get out there and make yourself vulnerable, to the right people, um, in safe measures. But then I think also you need to expose yourself to other situations that might stretch you a bit, um, that help you keep flexible in that accountability and not get stuck in the rut.
Yeah, it just makes me smile. No, you need both the the flexibility, the being stretched, and the strength if you want to keep momentum, if you want to keep moving forward. So it's not a static exposure of strength. No, it's in the flexibility, in the different settings where it's the workout and the effort really shows its benefit.
Yeah,
It's interesting if you think of combined sports like a triathlon,
yeah,
the way the whole stretching and strength development, muscle development around swimming, running, and cycling is in a way competing. And those people do extreme things, especially when you look at the Iron Man. But it asks devotion, dedication, and choices. And that's, I think, the word I really want to highlight again. You mentioned choice. It's having choice, making choice.
yeah.
I think that is the most empowering thing we have. Choice. And the moment we feel our choice is limited, we tend to lose joy, gratefulness. We disconnect with our internal spark. But the same is for the people who are around us.
Yeah.
We empower them to make powerful choices and support them in the choice they make. We create an environment of freedom. And freedom leads to the being able to express your creativity, to develop your vulnerability, to become authentic. And actually, you give people the choice to flourish or not, in a way.
Yeah.
And
You invite them in.
you invite them in. And if there is trust and safety, then people will not put you down when you invite them to flourish.
No.
And that if they flourish, you flourish. So it's that, and I think that solves the leadership paradox. Because now, through going through all the discomfort, we come to a higher level of perspective where your personal revival, I think renewal is maybe a better word, and your business growth goes hand in hand with that your people grow. So your business growth is a result, an outcome, and not a goal. It's flourishing all together for the benefit of all.
Yeah.
Which in a way sounds like utopia. But I truly believe it's not when we allow ourselves to make the choice, is this a head lead or a heart led adventure?
Yeah.
So to all landed, what are the 3 takeaways?
Well, I think maturity is probably one of the big things that we've talked about, and and that in maturity, the choice element and choosing and knowing when to let your heart lead, when to let your head lead. I think that's one, maybe two.
Make it 2, yeah. Then you still have to think of another one.
Well, I think we've talked quite a bit about accountability, and being accountable to yourself and to your peers, and exercising that muscle of accountability, what keeps you on track and enables you to, um, you know, do things you didn't believe were possible.
Yeah,
Compete at a higher level if you're taking your triathlon example.
yeah. Although I'm not a triathlon athlete, I really admire those people.
It's not too late.
I know, just 90 days. Yeah. Well, the other thing that stood out for me is the choice. Starting point, there is always choice. And if you don't feel you have a choice, go back to the self-awareness, become consciously aware. Am I listening to my head and it should be my heart? Or am I listening to my heart and it should have been my head? I think that's a really practical way to get yourself unstuck, because not having a choice, I think personally, I settle too much for that as a false assumption. And in that way, I just block myself. I put myself in the corner.
Yeah.
And
It's so often what we say to ourselves, I don't have a choice. I didn't have a choice. It's an excuse, isn't it? You always have a choice. Um,
yeah, and it's worth to go back to understanding the choice
yeah.
because that empowers you, gets you unstuck. Benj, thank you very much.
Always
And
a pleasure.
it is. I will be chewing a little longer on what we just said just after we finish the podcast. Um, as I like to invite all our listeners who were with us till the end, I really trust the conversation triggered something, maybe sparked something. And I hope it resonated, something that's really meaningful for your own journey. And I'd love to read your comments, your likes, your subscriptions help the our podcast channel, but also just interact. Don't process it in isolation. Find the right circle, the inner trust circle of peers. I also invite you just continue this conversation. Join us on our weekly authentic leadership transformation dialogue, in short, the old dialogue. And if you like to visit this exclusive peer dialogue to experience it first and ponder with us what the real questions are that matter to you for you to create the future, just direct message me future and I'll make sure you will receive the right information. Thank you all for tuning in.